The grand ballroom of the Riverside Hotel sparkled with crystal chandeliers and elaborate floral arrangements. It was the kind of venue that screamed money and status, exactly what Richard Montgomery had always craved. Today was his engagement party to Vanessa Chen, a celebration meticulously planned to showcase his success and new life. The guest list read like a who's who of the city's elite: business partners, social climbers, and family members all dressed in their finest attire. But there was one invitation that had caused whispers and raised eyebrows among those who knew the full story. Richard and Vanessa had invited his ex-wife Sarah Montgomery, now Sarah Bennett, having reclaimed her maiden name. The invitation wasn't extended out of goodwill or civility. It was a calculated move, a final twist of the knife into someone they believed they had already destroyed. Standing near the champagne fountain, Vanessa's mother, Patricia Chen, held court with several older women from her country club. "I still can't believe they invited her," one of them said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "After everything that poor woman went through." Patricia's smile was razor-sharp. Vanessa thought it would be good closure. Besides, it's been 3 years. Sarah should be over it by now. This way, she can see what Richard has moved on to. Someone younger, more successful, more suitable. What Patricia and the others didn't know was that Sarah had accepted the invitation with a knowing smile. She had every intention of attending, but not for the reasons they imagined. The divorce had been brutal. Richard had blindsided Sarah after 8 years of marriage, leaving her for Vanessa, who had been his assistant at the time. The affair had been going on for over a year before Sarah discovered it, finding incriminating messages on a tablet Richard had carelessly left unlocked. The discovery came just weeks after their final round of fertility treatments had failed. Treatments that had drained their savings and left Sarah emotionally devastated. Richard had shown no remorse. During the divorce proceedings, he'd painted Sarah as cold, career-obsessed, and unable to give him the family he desperately wanted. His lawyer had been ruthless, and Richard's family money had ensured he kept most of their assets. Sarah had walked away with almost nothing, a small settlement that barely covered her legal fees, no house, no savings, and a shattered sense of self-worth. But what Richard didn't know, what no one except Sarah's closest friend knew, was that the final fertility treatment had worked. Sarah had discovered she was pregnant 2 weeks after Richard served her with divorce papers. She was carrying triplets. She'd kept the pregnancy hidden, moving to a different part of the city, staying with her friend Jessica until she could get back on her feet. The pregnancy had been difficult, requiring bed rest for the final trimester, but Sarah had been determined. She'd given birth to 3 healthy babies, 2 boys and a girl, named Lucas, Noah, and Emma. For 3 years, she'd rebuilt her life from scratch, working remotely as a freelance graphic designer while raising her children, intentionally staying off Richard's radar. Now, as the afternoon sun filtered through the ballroom windows, Sarah stood outside the venue, her heart pounding, but her resolve firm. Jessica stood beside her, along with Sarah's mother, Margaret, who had flown in specifically for this occasion. In the parking lot was a custom stroller designed for triplets, where 3 beautiful 3-year-olds sat, dressed in adorable coordinating outfits. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" Jessica asked, though she knew Sarah well enough to know the answer. Sarah checked her reflection in her phone camera. She looked stunning, genuinely stunning, not in the trying too hard way Vanessa always seemed to embody. She wore an elegant navy dress that showed off the figure she'd worked hard to regain, her hair styled in soft waves, minimal but perfect makeup, highlighting features that glowed with genuine happiness and confidence. "I've never been more sure of anything," Sarah replied. "They invited me to humiliate me. They wanted to parade their happiness in front of the woman they think they broke. But I'm not broken. I'm better than I've ever been, and they're about to find out exactly what they threw away." Margaret squeezed her daughter's hand. "Your father would be so proud of you, not for the revenge, though I'll admit there's satisfaction in that, but for how you've rebuilt your life." The triplets were starting to get restless. Lucas, always the curious one, kept pointing at the hotel's fountains. Noah was content with his stuffed dinosaur, but Emma was already trying to climb out of the stroller, her independent streak showing early. "All right," Sarah said, taking a deep breath. "Let's do this." As they approached the entrance, the doorman's eyes widened slightly at the sight of the triplets, but he checked the invitation and stepped aside. The party was in full swing, the sound of music and laughter echoing through the corridor leading to the ballroom. Sarah pushed open the double doors. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Conversations died mid-sentence. Champagne glasses paused halfway to lips. All eyes turned to the entrance where Sarah stood, radiating a quiet confidence, with 3 beautiful children who bore an unmistakable resemblance to Richard Montgomery. Richard saw her first. He was mid-conversation with a business associate, his arm around Vanessa's waist, when his gaze drifted to the entrance. The color drained from his face so quickly that Vanessa noticed immediately. "Richard? What's wrong?" She turned to follow his stare, and her perfectly composed expression crumbled. What is this?" Sarah moved into the room with practiced grace, her mother helping navigate the stroller through the crowd that parted like the Red Sea. She could feel every eye on her, hear the whispers starting to build like a wave. Richard's mother, Catherine Montgomery, approached first, her shock evident. "Sarah? What? Whose children are these?" Sarah met her former mother-in-law's gaze steadily. Catherine had never been kind to her, always making it clear that Sarah wasn't quite good enough for her precious son. "Hello, Catherine. I'd like you to meet your grandchildren. This is Lucas, Noah, and Emma. They're 3 years old. Perhaps you can do the math." The whispers exploded into excited murmuring. Catherine's face went through a series of expressions: shock, disbelief, calculation, and finally, a dawning horror as she realized the implications. Richard had finally recovered enough to move, crossing the room with Vanessa hurrying behind him. Up close, he looked older than Sarah remembered. Stress lines around his eyes that makeup couldn't hide. "Sarah, what the hell is this? Some kind of sick joke?" "No joke, Richard. You invited me, remember? I thought it would be rude not to come. And I couldn't very well leave our children at home on such a special occasion." Sarah's voice was calm, almost pleasant, which somehow made her words cut deeper. Vanessa's voice was shrill. "Our children? That's ridiculous. You're just trying to ruin our day." Jessica, who had been hanging back, stepped forward with a folder. "Actually, we have documentation. Medical records from the fertility clinic showing the successful implantation date, birth certificates, and if you'd like, we can arrange DNA testing. Though I think the resemblance speaks for itself." Indeed, there was no denying it. All 3 children had Richard's distinctive dark hair and sharp jawline. Lucas, in particular, looked like a miniature version of his father, right down to the slight cleft in his chin. Catherine's voice cut through the chaos. "Richard, is this true? Did you abandon your pregnant wife?" "I didn't know." Richard's voice cracked with panic. "Sarah, I swear I didn't know you were pregnant." Sarah's laugh was bitter. "You didn't know because you never asked. You were too busy with your affair to notice that the fertility treatment we'd bankrupted ourselves for had actually worked. You served me divorce papers 2 weeks after I found out. I was going to tell you at our counseling session, but you canceled it to file instead." The room had gone completely silent now. Even the hired musicians had stopped playing. Vanessa's carefully curated guest list, all the people she'd wanted to impress, were witnessing the complete destruction of the narrative she and Richard had built. An older gentleman, one of Richard's major business partners, stepped forward. "Montgomery, you told me your first marriage ended because your wife couldn't have children. You said she was too focused on her career to even try." "That's what he told everyone," Sarah confirmed. "But the truth is, we spent years trying. We went through 4 rounds of IVF. It drained our savings, put stress on our marriage, and broke my heart every time it failed. And the one time it succeeded, Richard was too busy cheating to stick around for the results." Vanessa was crying now, her perfect makeup starting to run. "Richard, you promised me." "What did he promise you?" Sarah asked, her voice gentler now. Not out of sympathy, but because she remembered being in Vanessa's shoes, believing Richard's lies, thinking she was special. That I was the problem? That he left because I couldn't give him a family? Let me guess. He's promised you children, right? A big family? Vanessa's silence was confirmation enough. Richard's father, William Montgomery, had been watching from the sidelines. He approached slowly, his eyes fixed on the triplets. "May I?" he asked Sarah, gesturing to the children. Sarah nodded, and William knelt down beside the stroller. Emma, always the bold one, reached out to touch his tie. A smile crossed the old man's face, genuine and unguarded. They looked just like Richard did at this age. "I have photos." He looked up at his son, disappointment etched in every line of his face. "You're a fool, boy, a damned fool." Patricia Chen, Vanessa's mother, tried to salvage the situation. "This is clearly a setup, some kind of scheme to extort money." "I don't want his money," Sarah interrupted. "I never have. I rebuilt my life without any help from Richard or his family. I have a successful business, a home, and 3 beautiful children who've never wanted for anything. I came here today not to destroy Richard's happiness, but to set the record straight. You invited me here to humiliate me, to show me what I'd lost. But you're the ones who lost, and you didn't even know it." Margaret, who had been quietly supporting her daughter, added, "For 3 years, These children have grown up without knowing their father, their grandparents, their family. Sarah gave Richard the chance to step up, but he was too busy building this. She gestured around the opulent ballroom facade. Catherine was crying now too, staring at the grandchildren she'd never known existed. Sarah, we didn't know. If we had known, would it have made a difference? Sarah asked. You all believed Richard's lies because it was easier than admitting he'd done something wrong. You blamed me for the divorce, whispered about me at your clubs, made me the villain in a story you never bothered to verify. One of the guests, a younger woman Sarah didn't recognize, spoke up. I think we've all heard enough. This is clearly not the celebration we were led to believe we'd be attending. She set down her champagne glass and walked out, and like dominoes, others began to follow. Vanessa was hyperventilating now. This was supposed to be perfect. This was supposed to be our day. Jessica couldn't help herself. Karma's a real thing, Vanessa. You helped destroy a marriage, and now you're seeing the consequences. Richard tried one more time to take control. Sarah, please, can we talk about this privately? There has to be a way to what? Sarah cut him off. To go back in time and undo your choices? To pretend you didn't abandon your pregnant wife? To erase the fact that you've missed 3 years of your children's lives? She shook her head. No, Richard. There's nothing to talk about. My lawyer will be in touch regarding custody arrangements and child support. But beyond that, we have nothing to say to each other. William stood up, his decision clearly made. Sarah, my lawyers will contact you as well. These children are Montgomery's, and regardless of my son's appalling behavior, they deserve to know their family. If you're amenable, I'd like to arrange regular visits. Sarah considered this. William had always been kind to her, even when Catherine wasn't. We can discuss it. I won't keep them from family who genuinely wants to be in their lives. But it will be on my terms, and their well-being comes first. I wouldn't expect anything less, William replied. As Sarah prepared to leave, taking her children away from the wreckage of Richard and Vanessa's engagement party, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For 3 years, she'd carried the burden of their betrayal, the pain of rebuilding from nothing. But standing here, watching their perfect facade crumble, she realized she'd already won. She hadn't won because she'd ruined their party, though there was admittedly some satisfaction in that. She'd won because she'd survived, thrived even, despite everything they'd done to her. She'd built a life filled with love and purpose, raised 3 incredible children, and reclaimed her sense of self-worth. As she pushed the stroller toward the exit, Emma started to fuss. Without thinking, Sarah picked her up, settling the little girl on her hip. Catherine approached one more time, hesitant. Sarah, I know I have no right to ask, but could I see them again? Could we try to be part of their lives? Sarah looked at her former mother-in-law, seeing genuine regret for perhaps the first time. That depends on you, Catherine. If you can be a positive presence in their lives, if you can put their needs before your pride, then yes. But I won't allow anyone to make my children feel like their problems to be solved or secrets to be hidden. Catherine nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. Thank you. As Sarah finally left the ballroom, she could hear the party disintegrating behind her, arguments breaking out, guests leaving in droves, Vanessa's sobs echoing off the crystal chandeliers. But Sarah didn't look back. She had everything she needed walking out of that building with her. In the parking lot, Jessica helped load the kids into the car. How do you feel? She asked. Sarah thought about it as she buckled Emma into her car seat. I feel free, she said finally. For 3 years, I've been carrying this anger, this need to prove I was the victim in all of this. But today, I realized I don't need to prove anything to anyone. The truth speaks for itself. Margaret hugged her daughter tight. Your father always said the best revenge is living well. You've done that, sweetheart. You've done more than that. As they drove away, Sarah caught a glimpse in the rearview mirror of the hotel fading into the distance. Somewhere in that building, Richard was dealing with the consequences of his choices. Vanessa was watching her fairy tale collapse, and their guests were spreading the story that would follow them for years. But Sarah wasn't thinking about any of that. She was thinking about bedtime stories and tomorrow's trip to the park, about Noah's upcoming preschool graduation, and Lucas's fascination with dinosaurs, about Emma's fearless personality and how much all 3 of them had grown. They had invited her to embarrass her, to showcase their happiness at her expense. Instead, she'd shown them, and everyone else, exactly what they'd thrown away. Not just 3 beautiful children, but a woman who had loved honestly, fought through unimaginable pain, and emerged stronger than they would ever be. The day they meant to humiliate her had instead become her vindication. And as Sarah drove home to the life she'd built from the ashes of her old one, she knew with absolute certainty that she had won the only victory that truly mattered. She had survived, and she had thrived. The triplets fell asleep in their car seats as the city lights blurred past. Sarah smiled, her heart full of a contentment that Richard and Vanessa, with all their money and status and carefully constructed image, would never understand. Because real happiness, she had learned, doesn't come from proving you're better than someone else. It comes from knowing you're exactly where you're meant to be, with exactly the people you're meant to be with. And Sarah Montgomery, Sarah Bennett now, was finally truly home.